Welcome to another episode of Sideline Sanity with me, Michele Tafoya, sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Go to legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. So what really is diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI? What really is it? What does diversity mean? What does equity mean? What does inclusion mean? And those words, when they are put together in this little umbrella of DEI, what does that look like on campus in particular? How many officers, vice presidents, chair people, board people fall under that DEI category? What do they do on campus? And what are they doing to education? What's going on for real? Is it healthy? Is it smart? Is it wise? Is it fair? Ilya Shapiro, once a Georgetown lecturer who parted ways after they disagreed with some of his tweets. He's a guy who likes liberty. He's a guy who believes in the Constitution. He works for the Manhattan Institute, and he is working with another very well-known name, Christopher Rufo, on a project to say to state legislators, hey, you can eliminate this DEI from colleges and universities and other schools in your state. No, it doesn't mean kicking off clubs that, want to celebrate a certain ethnicity or culture or even Marxism. What it does mean is taking these components of DEI that, quite frankly, are authoritarian in nature, take them out of schools. Ilya Shapiro is a perfect person to discuss this. He joins us next.
For nearly 3 decades, she's reported the action from the sidelines. She started very young. She's covered the NBA, NFL, Olympics, and the college football and basketball national championships. And now, during these insane times in our world, Michele Tafoya thinks we need a serious dose of sanity. This is Sideline Sanity with your host, one of the sanest people on planet Earth, Michele Tafoya.
Ilya, it's great to see you again. You're one of my rare repeat guests, but this is such an important topic to me. I'm going to read this title, Abolish DEI Bureaucracies and Restore Colorblind Equality in Public Universities. You're working on this with Christopher Rufo and Matt, and I'm afraid to say, how is Matt pronounce his last name?
I forget.
Bryanberg?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it's Bryanberg.
Okay. We're both just looking at it going, whoo, there are a lot of vowels there. But anyway, this is an ambitious project. And why don't you explain to us, what are you guys really trying to achieve here?
Right. Good to be back with you. I think it was 8 months ago when we last spoke, around the time when I was resigning from Georgetown and using that spotlight to show all the illiberal aspects of legal education and higher education more broadly. And that's where this project comes in. So a lot of people, myself included, before I had my whole Twitter investigation with Georgetown, I thought, well, there's nothing we can do. There are these, pathologies within faculty, within administrators, student cultures. There's nothing that you can really do. But the more you look at it, the more you think about it, there is something you can do, because so much of this is driven not by kind of a decades-old conservative complaint about liberal takeover of the faculties, the Berkeleys from the 60s and all of those kind of, boomer concerns, but the bureaucracies themselves. And I think it was about 15 years ago, maybe a little less than that, where across academia, there started to be more administrators, non-teaching staff than faculty, which is always ominous. That's ominous in the public sector, and it's ominous in education as well. And especially in the last 5 years, that has all been DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, which in a very Orwellian way means the opposite of these great terms: diversity, fairness, welcoming. All these things that we should like, but it's not all puppies and rainbows. It's the opposite of that. And so getting together with lots of people who are working in this area, we want to think about, we want to change these structures and systems and processes. The equity folks, the critical studies folks talk about systemic racism and structural this and that. Well, there are structures that are fomenting this indoctrination, this radicalization of higher ed. And so forget, setting aside the issue of what classes should be taught or what professors can and can't say and regulating speech, setting that aside, what about the bureaucracies or the educrats, as I like to call them?
Oh, that's a good term.
And so this project, this model legislation, these proposed reforms, we target 4 areas. And this is state legislatures who have control. It works differently in different states, but have some sort of control over public institutions, can legislate. So number 1, and this is the biggest one, is, as you read out the title of the whole thing, abolishing DEI bureaucracies. That is, removing the positions of people who are not contributing to the educational mission. Now, to be clear, and we define this is very legalistic, we poured over it with very kind of lawyerly fly-specking. We define our terms very clearly, and this does not include, for example, people working to comply with federal and state civil rights laws, Title IX, Americans with Disabilities Act, other kinds of federal and state prohibitions on racial discrimination, what have you. No, this is the people who are putting in these new indoctrination programs. They're being hired like all bureaucrats. They face incentives to expand their bailiwicks to get bigger budgets. And so they look for dragons to slay. They find evidence of racism and sexism and what all these isms where they're not really there. And that really has the effect of chilling speech, of subverting due process, all of these things that we complain about in higher education. So again, just get rid of all of those staff that's not contributing to the educational mission. And by the way, Michele, they're not even succeeding on their own terms. There are climate surveys about whether students feel more welcome, feel more comfortable with diversity. And on all of those metrics, across ethnic lines and what have you, they've all gone down since these DEI offices.
That doesn't surprise me, because I would not feel welcome on campus these days. I wouldn't, and I'm a Hispanic woman, but I wouldn't. So this seems to me to be. I'm glad this is the first pillar, Ilya, because it seems to me to be the really, really challenging one. If you are a state. Look at Ron DeSantis. He's getting vilified, being called a dictator for trying to have any kind of influence over education. Like education should be this free space for ideas. And as you've pointed out, DEI has made it less free. I mean, it's become it's a sort of this umbrella of intolerance. But how do you convince? I mean, how do you convince these states that they can slash these bureaucrats?
Bills have been introduced in a number of states. Governors and attorneys general are looking at what they can do through enforcement actions, through executive actions that are already they're empowered to do. Governor Abbott in Texas a couple of weeks ago said, just like Biden going the other way, putting equity into, having these political commissars attached to every federal government agency. Abbott is doing the reverse and saying we are not going to, throughout Texas agencies, which includes educational institutions, we are not going to have this. And you've seen a reaction, and it comes when lights are shone on these sorts of operations. Very quickly, there's a pausing. Just a few weeks ago, there was a report out of Texas Tech, which is a state institution there, just with FOIA documents that a biology department was hiring based on diversity statements, not on whether you're the best chemist or the best biologist or what have you, but on can you parrot this language? And one Wall Street Journal op-ed was all it took for the president of the university to say, no, we're not going to do this. We're reevaluating our hiring across all departments. So this gives me hope, because I was despairing, not about society more broadly, and we can get into this because there's complicating factors, but higher education is an echo chamber where the left hand doesn't know what the far left hand is doing, and there's not much of a There's no critical mass of not even conservatives or libertarians, but non-progressives, and even the boomers are afraid of the next generation and what have you. But things like this, and you see these statements cropping up. I follow the Twitter discussions, and whenever these things are brought to light, all of a sudden the university administrators like, because this is the thing that I've discovered, certainly with my experience in Georgetown with Bill Traynor, the dean of Georgetown Law. He and most university leaders, deans, presidents, provosts, etc., are not woke radicals. They're not social justice warriors. They are spineless cowards. And so all it takes is to expose the shenanigans of the radicals, who are a minority. Most people just, whether students or faculty, just kind of keep their head down and don't want to get involved in any of this mess. And so if you can demonstrate that there is pushback, if you can elevate this to national issues, all of a sudden the incentive structure that these leaders face, because they don't have any principles, they just go based on navigating how they can advance themselves. All of a sudden their incentive structures change, and they can be forced to say, hold on a sec, do I really want to be the thought police and argued about on the front pages of the leading websites and newspapers?
Yeah, well, one that comes to mind, or a situation that comes to mind, is University of North Carolina right now. So the Board of Regents wants this new sort of department, and you can correct me anywhere that I'm wrong because I'm going by memory here, that allows for free thought and debate and civil debate and everything that a university should be in its own little department. And the faculty is fighting back. Are you familiar with this story that I'm talking about? Yeah,
no, it's kind of funny. These centers, they're called different things. I think at UNC it's called the Classical Studies Center or Institute, but basically these free thinking places are being created that actually embody the original mission of any institution of higher education. Right. But they've been so perverted that we need to create special centers. It's like at Georgetown, where I was hired for the Center for the Constitution. And that's such an important body because the rest of the law school is a center against the Constitution. And so, yeah, UNC is, but again, with public institutions, there can be legislative and other public officials providing oversight. Little different in private institutions, but still, a lot of the private places, including Georgetown for that matter, have adopted very good speech and expression policies, and then they violate them. And they occasionally lose lawsuits and things like that. Stanford, another private institution, very elite, put out big scandal, made national news a month and a half, 2 months ago. Their forbidden words and phrases, things like color blindness and America. In America, everyone can achieve anything because of equal opportunity, and people should be judged on their merit. All of these sorts of seemingly innocuous and very good values were forbidden, and Stanford eventually had to walk that back because of the outcry. So more and more these things are happening. Maybe we've passed peak woke. I mean, don't get me wrong; these bureaucracies are still expanding in many places, and they are still very powerful. But they're on notice. Maybe to kind of see what I remember from calculus from 25 years ago, maybe the rate of increase has slowed, and maybe eventually we can start reducing the staff and the programming of this regard.
Quick break, and we'll come back and talk about the other 3 pillars of your plan. Right back. So with the economy being what it is and the world stage being what it is, with a war going on and now China and Putin are meeting, and oh my gosh, it's a little crazy. And we've seen crazy now here many times in the last few years with the shelves running out of toilet paper during the pandemic. Before a snowstorm, I went to the grocery store and they were out of lettuce. They were out of romaine. I mean, the shelves were clearing so what about survival food? I know some of you think this sounds a little out there, but I don't. I think it would be great to know that for the next 25 years, I had something in my cabinet that would serve my family and keep us fed in the case that there is no food or there's not the right kind of food. So I think this is a good idea, and I'm going to refer you to 4 Patriots, 4patriots.com. Use the code Michele, Michele, get 10% off any kind of purchase. This is hand packed right in a family-owned facility in the USA. It's not ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years. The kits are compact and water resistant. They could stack right in your cupboard. They have all kinds of different foods and meals that you can prepare in 20 minutes with some hot water. And now, if you go to 4patriots.com, and like I said, use the code Michele, Michele, you get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this 3-month survival kit. Go to 4patriots.com. Use that code Michele, Michele. They're called 4 Patriots, by the way, because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. We love that. 4patriots.com, code Michele. There is a lot that state legislatures can do to reverse the illiberal takeover of higher education through diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, offices that ironically stifle intellectual diversity, pervert equal opportunity, and exclude anyone who dissents from a rigid orthodoxy. All right. And you talked about number 1, abolish DEI bureaucracies. Number 2 would be ending mandatory diversity training. What's the biggest hurdle to ending that?
Well, it's the bureaucrats that have been hired to develop these
Okay.
programs. They have to justify themselves. And so we see implicit bias training, microaggression training, all of these things. This is not, a lot of your listeners might in their offices have to take sexual harassment training and things like this. This is not basic training on, the law of the workplace or what have you. This is operationalizing some of these radical critical theories, whether it be race or gender or whatever. And if ironically, again, creating the very same hostile environment where everyone's on pins and needles and is afraid of doing or saying something and feeling guilty and trying to judge their privilege and all of these things that prevents the organization from, in this case, an educational institution, again, operating as it should be. This is why students and faculty have been reporting in surveys for a while now the need to self-censor, that they can't talk about certain topics. And again, this is not just coming from conservatives. This is anyone. The only people these surveys say that feel comfortable talking are self-identified far left individuals. And so these diversity trainings don't educate people about how to prevent harassment, how not to get raped, how to how not to discriminate or something. They are instead these the only way to be anti-racist is to be racist, and all of these just weird illiberal theories. So get rid of them.
Well, I want to get to this word illiberal you just mentioned, because I think it's important that people understand there's liberal, there's conservative, there's illiberal. How would you explain to someone who's sort of like, what does illiberal mean? How would you explain it?
Well, it is opposite to the classical definition of liberal, meaning for individual rights and freedoms, civil discourse, due process, these basic values on which our constitutional order, our social culture is really based. Illiberal is more authoritarian. Things run through a political lens of any kind. You could be right wing, left wing, whatever, and subverting or deprioritizing things like free speech and due process in favor of things like equity, equal outcomes,
Yes.
or people being made to understand the hierarchy of intersectionality and whose voice matters more or should matter more, rebalancing, redistributing, whether it's property or power or privilege or what have you.
It's craziness to me. It honestly is, because the fact that equity has replaced the word equality to me is one of the biggest farces in America. I don't understand how people could ever accept equal outcomes among humans who are human. Because we are human, we are all different. We all achieve different things. Some people can sing, some people can't. Some people can paint, others can't. So how can you possibly expect equal outcomes.
My hairline's receding. Does that mean all men have to shave their heads? You know,
we may get to that. To what end? I can't imagine.
I mean, this is like Kurt Vonnegut's classic short story, Harrison Bergeron, where indeed there was a handicapper in chief that because they were talented dancers, they were forced to wear ankle weights. Because they're talented singers, they were, you know, some device on their throats. And people whose IQs were too high had to wear these headphones that distracted them and things like this. That's, you know, we thought it was fiction, and it wasn't meant to be a how-to guide.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Okay.
So pillar 3
yes.
and this is in the news a lot just the last month, is ending diversity statements or any other statements of political coercion or loyalty oaths, for that matter. The Supreme Court has long said decades ago that loyalty oaths from public institutions are unconstitutional.
It just seems illegal to me to force someone to sign something they don't agree with.
And yet, apparently, 20 to 25% of academic positions around the country in higher ed now are subject to these diversity statements. When I was invited to apply to be dean of University of Tennessee Law School about a year and a half ago, going on 2 years ago, there was this requirement, right? Write what you have contributed to DEI. And I talked about being an immigrant and having experiences in Latin America and Europe and all this stuff. Clearly was not good enough. I wasn't even invited to interview after having been invited to apply. But that's what's going on, again, in completely unrelated issue areas. If you're going to be a professor of electrical engineering, why is one, and they say these in their training materials, that this is one of our top 3 things: your research, your teaching, and your commitment to equity. It's really, and just saying things, this is what came out of the Texas Tech materials, saying things like, I will evaluate people purely on their merit. I don't care where they're from, who they are, what color, and saying that is not good, according to these diversity statements. So get rid of those kinds of requirements, whether for hiring, for contracting, for admissions. That is, you talk about the DEI bureaucracies more broadly. The specific issue of this kind of compelled speech is perhaps the most insidious thing of all.
Is this going to require someone getting this to the Supreme Court in order to make these things go away? I mean, in other words, it seems like people just go, oh, I need a paycheck. I'm just going to sign this damn agreement and say that I am all of these things and go to work. It's going to take people to stand up, right? And fight this?
It could well be. And what's funny, I'm hearing that in places that are implementing these policies with respect to diversity statements, specifically of the kind that I've been proposing, there's pushback from some faculty and others, and maybe there would be a test case saying, you're telling us that we can't require these diversity statements is a First Amendment violation in and of itself. If that kind of case gets up to the Supreme Court, I think that would be a big slapdown of this whole DEI agenda.
Okay, quick break. More with Ilya Shapiro right after this. Well, I don't know about you, but the economy concerns me a lot. This Joe Biden economy is not what I signed up for, not what I voted for, certainly. But, I think about it in 2 ways. Short term, eggs are really expensive. Long term, my retirement, what is it looking like? Well, there's one way to protect that retirement that no other way can protect, and that's gold and silver. And the only company I entrust when investing in gold and silver is Legacy Precious Metals. Go to legacypminvestments.com and find out what I'm talking about. And you want to do this sooner than later. Remember 2008? Those who invested in gold saw significant gains while others lost their retirements. So go to legacypminvestments.com, download their free investor's guide. They can answer all of your questions. Again, you want to do this ASAP. Or give them a call and talk directly to one of their IRA experts, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or download that free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. By the way, I should mention the Manhattan Institute is a think tank whose mission is to develop and disseminate new ideas that foster greater economic choice and individual responsibility. Hallelujah and amen to that. That's why I'm a big fan, Ilya. All right, fourth and final pillar.
Ending identity-based preferences. So regardless of what the Supreme Court does with the UNC and Harvard cases that are on the docket this term about racial preferences for admissions, this would go broader than that. It goes to all kind of identity-based factors, and in hiring as well as admissions and contracting. And so this would prevent higher ed from trying to resist whatever the Supreme Court does, if it presumably, as the conventional wisdom goes, will get rid of the use of race as a factor in admissions. And so this is a way to get ahead of trying to make an end run around those kind of maneuvers.
So affirmative action, do you think that the Supreme Court is going to end this?
I think it will end just check a box and you get a plus, and often a determinative plus. It's incontrovertible that at any given level of academic achievement, it's much easier to get into, whether it's Harvard or UNC or any selective institution. If you're Black, then Latino, then white, then Asian. There's a hierarchy of depending on what race you are.
Asian comes in after white?
Absolutely.
It's fascinating to me. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but why am I surprised? Like, why is that, do you think?
Because Asian American students have been too successful, and you can find educational administrators saying too successful in many ways, or that they're too much into math and medicine and science and things like that. All of these stereotypes. I mean, in the Harvard case, it came out that to downgrade Asian American applicants, or to maintain as the applicant pool of Asians explodes in the last decade or so, the percentage of Asian Americans on campus at Harvard has about stayed the same. And at all Ivy League schools, they're sort of acting in concert. There might be an antitrust issue here as to boot. But the Harvard admissions officers downgraded their personality scores. So apparently Asians have uniformly bad personalities.
Huh. I didn't know that. I'm so,
you didn't go to Harvard, Michele.
Yeah. No, I didn't. And I'm grateful. Although I sent my diploma back to UC Berkeley, which is where I did graduate from. It's to me, it's just crazy. And what can you say? All of this, I said to you before we came on camera together, Ilya, this seems really ambitious, this whole plan. And you said it is, but you are optimistic. Why?
I'm more optimistic than I was when I joined Manhattan Institute. When I left Georgetown, I thought academia was irredeemable. But, in the long term, it could well be that as ordinary people, normal people who don't spend their lives focused on politics or, living online, as they say, the laptop left, as it were, as they pay attention to what's going on, and they say, well, no wonder those elite institutions are out of whack. It's because they're implementing all these policies that are racialist and just illiberal, just crazy, as you said. And as more and more people see that, there's a bit of this emperor has no clothes dynamic, because there is an element, and I said this to you before we started as well, there's an element of a paper tiger. So these DEI projects seem just terribly fierce, and it's almost head spinning, how quickly they've come online. I went to law school 20 years ago. We didn't have any of this stuff. It's really been in the last decade. And as I've been doing research for my latest book, which I'm writing now, the working title is Canceling Justice, the Illiberal Takeover of Legal Education. Really, it's been in the last few years where you have the growth of the vice president for DEI, the director of diversity, all of these types of bureaucratic offices and positions. It could be that to push back on them, it only takes awakening that large plurality in the middle that otherwise just wants to be there to do their work, to get a job, to get through it, to have fun if you're a college student, all these other priorities that are and should be more important than fighting this generation's PC wars, political correctness wars, what we called them in the 90s. So maybe there's reason to be optimistic, because you do see every now and again, and increasingly so, university presidents saying, hold on, that they've been shamed. They've been shamed. And as I said, university officials respond to two things. They respond to donors and they respond to publicity. So the more that those dynamics can both be introduced, and I'm trying to do my part to shine that light on and to get people awakened to, ironically enough, what exactly is going on.
Yeah, we need to wake up to the woke. So if someone's listening here to this podcast and they say, I am so sick of the DEI and my university is committing this stuff and I'm sick of it. As an individual, like you said, just an average person out there, college degree, and they see what's happening at their schools. Is it worth a letter? Is it worth saying you get no more of my money?
Absolutely.
Even if they're a small donor?
Even if you're a small donor, universities track percentage of donations, and they know that every letter, every email, every tweet they receive represents many multiples of just that one person.
They do know that. You're convinced of that.
Oh yeah. They're marketing experts, and they're, the development officers, they're trained to understand how to push people's buttons and how to activate certain parts of the alumni community. I mean, these are sophisticated models at this point. We're not talking, 60 years ago in the analog age where you kind of just make some phone calls, send out some letters, and hope they send some cash back. Now there's all this modeling and spreadsheeting and all the rest of it. So yeah, every individual letter, even if you're a small donor, even if you're not a donor but you're just an alumnus, that matters. That matters. And similarly, if you're not an alumnus, let's say you don't have a college degree from anywhere, writing your state officials, your county officials, your local officials. It matters. It gets noticed, even more. Your congressman, represents 700,000 to 1 million people, might not notice as much, but they track these things, overall numbers. But a lot of this is more of a state than a federal issue or a local issue when we're talking about K to 12. But for colleges, absolutely keep the pressure on in all sorts of ways. And it doesn't have to be any long or sophisticated thing, but tell it in your own words. And the point is, what does DEI mean to you? Because people are finding out about it. And it's not, again, on the legal side, it's not complying with civil rights laws. It's not trying to get rid of civil rights laws. And it's not trying to get rid of, if someone wants to have a Mexican folkloric dance group on campus, fantastic. African-American cultural group, fantastic. It's instead, in fact, our proposals that we went through excludes student organizations. You can have a student organization to learn about Marxism. That's what college is for. You have some sort of interest, you can develop it. This instead is coming to prevent universities from indoctrinating in certain ways. And that's the key difference.
It's a major difference. And it's interesting to hear that an email to a congressperson, a letter to your university, a tweet mentioning your university or a university, and the displeasure associated with that can make a difference. Ilya Shapiro, we're so glad to get your input on this. I wish you Godspeed with this, because I think this DEI stuff is a wolf in sheep's clothing. That, those words individually, except for equity, which people just wake up.
Well, even the word equity, that just means fairness. And in Anglo-American law, we've had centuries of courts of equity, doing things, ruling in ways that are fair in various ways. So even that word originally is perfectly innocuous. But again, it's been twisted to mean something else.
Yes, it has. And again, all of those words sound really nice, but this has become an industry, DEI. Everyone knows what those letters mean. And as you said, there are just so many administrators now at colleges and universities across the country that are there simply to impose this stuff. And what did you say? They're spineless, the deans and the presidents?
Spineless cowards.
Spineless cowards. Talk to them and play on that spineless cowardice and tell them you're not going to give money anymore. It's so disappointing. Ilya, Godspeed. Like I said, I hope you guys. I hope this goes where it should go. And
thanks. And one other thing that I've gotten going since the last time we spoke is I have a Substack now, Shapiro's Gavel, where I talk about law, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and have detailed both my experience and other things that I'm learning in this space.
Shapiro's Gavel on Substack. Substack is such a great place to visit and browse and find out what's out there from independent thinkers. I'm going to go subscribe right now.
Thank you.
Ilya, thanks. We'll follow up with you and can't wait to see the book when it comes out.
Great. Take care. Thanks
for listening, everyone. This is Sideline Sanity. Don't forget to be brave and do good. See you next time.